Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I'm Jordan, and today we're going to look at Jura. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but this is an Isle whiskey. Sorry, not an Isla, but an Isle. So they call the islands off of Scotland Isles. So Isla is an isle, so it's the Isle of Isla. This is the Isle of Jura. Not exactly sure, but this is Jura 10. We're going to call it Jura with a J. And it's a 10-year-old single malt scotch. And it is produced by, let me see if I can get this right. It's produced by Whyte and Mackay, which is owned by a Philippines-based company called Emperador Incorporated. So I probably slaughtered all of that, but that's what I got here. Craig House, Isle of Jura. It's imported by Whyte and Mackay to the United States. Let's see. Product of Scotland, the Isle of Jura Distillery Company. Craig House, Isle of Jura. So that's the city. A touch of peat brings a rich and rounded balance of subtle smoky notes. So there we go. 10 years old, 40%, so at the bottom. So 40% ABV, 80 proof whiskey. Matured in American white oak bourbon barrels and finished aged Oloroso sherry cask. So it has a sherry finish on it. Kind of looking forward to that. Now, before I dive any further into this, I must apologize. My last video, the audio is a little raspy and crappy. Sorry, I still have crappy audio from time to time. Not exactly sure why. Hopefully this audio is better. But, for some reasons, once in a while when I start shooting, if I don't consciously think to do a test run before I start, I'll do a whole video just like I did with the Copper Dog here, and I go back and play it back and it's all raspy and crappy, and so I apologize for the crappy audio. My fault, but I'm not going to reshoot a 10-minute video or whatever, so sorry about that, and hopefully this audio is better, and if not, I'll apologize for that now too. I picked this up locally for $48.79. It is a fairly widely available whiskey, and you should be able to pick it up in most places that you can get scotch. I've seen it on the shelf quite readily, so I got that here in town, and let's see what we get out of it. Once again, even that, you got a pretty nice box there. This is a cardboard box with a tin top on it. Scotch. You guys are doing a pretty good job beating the pants off of the presentation of bourbons and other whiskeys. Ooh, so I get a really hefty butterscotch out of this, like really hefty, and almost like a super deep, think Christmas time cream caramel, so like a milk caramel, so like a butterscotch mixed with a homemade caramel. Oh, it's very nice, and then you get some malt on the end of that, a nice sweet malt, so very sweet in the nose. If you really dig in there, you might be able to pick up some peat, but the peat that you're going to get out of it is not peat smoke, it's peat earthiness, okay? So kind of that's, if you've ever been to a swamp or a bog and you can smell the peat itself, or if you've gone to the Home and Garden Center and got a bag of peat for planting flowers or something like that, that smell, that earthiness, it's in there, but it's tucked way in the back. You might not even get it at all, because it's mostly sweet, forward notes on the nose, And if you get real deep in there, if you can find the peat, then you can probably pick out a little bit of seaside brininess, like low tide, walking on the seashore. That smell, but that's really subtle as well. Neither of those two notes are jumping out of the glass, but I'm picking them up. Okay, let's go in for a taste. It's a little disappointing. On the taste, there's almost nothing until you get 3/4 of the way through the mid palate. Then all of a sudden you get a little spike of tobacco, which I'm guessing is that peat smoke presenting in there a little bit, but just a little hint of tobacco and sweet caramel mixed in there before you get a little bit of barrel tannin and a little bit of seaside brine on the finish. And both of those notes are underlain with an ethanol presentation. Now I'm getting a little bit of leather out of the glass on the second nosing here. Leather and seaside. But the palate was extremely thin. I mean, it was watery thin, just kind of rushed over my palate, and disappeared before I could even pick anything out. You know, it is at 40%, but I mean that was a little unexpected, considering the nose was fairly vibrant with these sweet notes. I was thinking that would kind of make up the majority of the beginning and middle palate here, but let's see. Maybe on the second sip. Okay, second sip had a little more body to the beginning part of the palate. Did pick up some of those sweeter notes, a touch of caramel, and a touch of maybe a brown sugar in there. But then, I mean, it was there and gone very quickly. The mid palate, once again, just watery thin, nothing real discernible. And then a spike of tobacco. In fact, like I just infused some pipe tobacco. So I made my own pipe here last summer. And then I bought some tobacco that I brought with me to elk camp last year. And I've had it laying around since last year. And so I kind of reconstituted a little bit. So I had gotten a whiskey tobacco and a bourbon tobacco, and I couldn't differentiate one from the other, or that they had any sort of flavoring or scent or anything to them special. So what I did was I took and broke them into little individual varieties and put them in some containers and put a couple drops of different whiskeys in there. So I did a rye, I did an Islay Scotch, I did a bourbon, I did a couple different bourbons. So I just took a bunch of different whiskeys and tried different varieties. And man, now when you pop the top on one of those containers, that tobacco just smells delicious. That smell with that amount of intensity is what I get on the taste. So when I can smell that new whiskey, you know, kind of has a dampness to it, which really brings out the smell. That smell in the back of my throat is what I'm tasting when I taste this whiskey as it leads into that finish. Now that finish still has some ethanol in there. The nose is not changing a whole lot. It's still really sweet, but I'm kind of surprised I'm not getting those notes so much on the palate. One more time, just for good measure. That time I got a little bit of peat smoke in there. It finally came out. So it was like a nice sweet vanilla followed quickly by a little bit of peat smoke. That peat smoke may be why I'm getting that leathery note, but leathery, tobacco-y kind of brought in there. So that's kind of in the middle. And then it finishes a little bitey, a little young, even though it's 10-year-old. It just presents as like young ethanol, and then it just quickly drops off with that bite. I don't know what I want to say on this one. Whether I mean, I don't dislike it. If you poured it for me and said, "Hey, we're drinking this," I'd say thank you very much. Nice whiskey. You know, it's not a bad whiskey, but I think it could do a little bit better, especially if they bumped up the proof to 43 or 45. Some of those notes might come out a little bit more. Now, one thing you'll find is that a lot of scotches, even in the aisles, you'll find that the older they are, the more that bitiness kind of disappears. Things kind of age slowly in Scotland. So, like, you're really that 10 to 16, 18-year mark on your scotches. That's where they kind of really sing. Whereas with a bourbon, you know, at 4, 6, you know, maybe 8 years here in America, that's kind of where bourbons really tend to shine. There are some that are, you know, 2 years old and do really awesome. But that 4-year-old mark is really where things start to change. For scotches, it seems like 12, sometimes 10 years is where things go. I would say this one could use a little more time in the barrel, but it's not bad. It's just really tamped down. So maybe with a little bit of bump in proof, it would change a little bit. But there's no notes that have gone awry in there. And maybe if you sit and really work at it over the course of time, like if I drank maybe a bigger pour or something like that, I'd be able to pick out more notes. I get a little tobacco, I get just a hint of smoke, a little brine, some sweet notes here and there, but it's just really, really thin, which is unfortunate, especially at the price point. What did I say it was? $48.79 here locally. There's a lot better whiskeys. I would definitely go to Monkey Shoulder. I just did a review of Copper Dog. I like that one better. Granted, those are Speyside. If you want more of the smoke, there's several Islas. If you go back through my videos, you'll see some of the previous videos in the last couple of weeks have been some cheaper Islas that I've started to dive into that I picked up at Total Wines. Those have more of a smoke component along with some nice fruity sweet notes, a good mix of those. I'd highly recommend those. I don't know if I'm going to be pointing anybody in this direction. If you picked it up, I don't think you'd be wowed by it. You'd definitely be able to drink it without any problems, but I think you might believe you took a wrong turn, especially at that price point. There's a lot better whiskey that's more flavorful, more dominant in all different categories of scotch for that same money. So there you go. That's what I have to say about the Jura 10-Yr. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. Not bad, not great, just kind of in the middle and on the watery side. So there you go. Let me know in the comments down below what your experience with Jura 10-Yr is and what you can find it for in your area. Also, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe smash that like button if you are getting anything out of these videos. And yeah, I'll try and get back to you if you do leave a comment. Drop the price in there so everybody kind of knows what you can find it for in your area. And yeah, we'll leave it there. As always, thanks for watching. Greatly appreciate it. You guys have yourselves a great day. We'll catch you in the next video.